for us in Ukraine, this is like not the first time, right? We have been in this so-called ceasefire agreement with Russia since 2014. And I can tell you one thing, that there was not a single day when Russia would honor this ceasefire. They were attacking us in different territories in different ways. And there was like nobody to complain about that, right?
Okay.
And this is why right now we need some understanding. How do we know that this situation will not be repeated? And how do we know that Russia will keep their part of the deal?
We've all been digesting events coming out of the Munich Security Conference today and yesterday, and also really digesting real kind of events from Thursday night when the new Defence Secretary, the American Defence Secretary, sort of announced that there was going to be discussions between America and Russia about what to do about Ukraine. He said some, very sort of surprising things, saying that, NATO membership for Ukraine was not going to be on the table, and he indicated that Russia would be able to sort of have, the land that it wanted. Now, since then, it's safe to say there's been, turmoil in diplomatic circles, and the voices we haven't really heard from are the Ukrainians. Now, President Zelensky is at this conference, and he told the conference today that the time has come to create a European army. He also told leaders and officials that he would not take NATO membership for Ukraine off the table. So look, let's now speak to somebody who is actually Ukrainian. And, it does feel like, and we're having all these conversations, we're finding out what the Americans think, we're talking about what the Russians think. What do actual Ukrainians think about this situation? Well, let's now speak with Kira Rudik, Ukrainian MP and member of the Golos party. Kira, welcome to the show. Thanks very much for joining us.
Hello, Aisha, and thank you so much for having me.
So let's just start. What is your reaction to everything that has been said over the last few days?
Well, Aisha, the news, when they started coming, they create like lots of emotions here on the ground. And then we started hearing statements that oppose the previous statements. So honestly, to keep the sanity, we are trying to wait in this noise for some like real signal for something that would be on the table. And we, as President Zelensky said, as of right now, do not have anything on the table, right? So there are statements by J.D. Vance, by Donald Trump, by Secretary of Defense of the United States, Pete Hegseth. They all contradict each other. So generally, the position of the United States, I would say, is undefined right now. And there are talks that are happening behind the scenes. So there were talks with Keith Kellogg, the envoy for Ukraine, and there would be obviously some discussions with Russian side by the US administration. But for us, the things go down to this simple question. The baseline to all the discussions and all the negotiations should be the security guarantees. Like, how do we know that these talks, these negotiations even have the sense? How do we make sure that Russia will keep their part of the bargain? Because for us in Ukraine, this is like not the first time, right? We have been in this so-called ceasefire agreement with Russia since 2014. And I can tell you one thing, that there was not a single day when Russia would honor this ceasefire. They were attacking us in different territories in different ways. And there was like nobody to complain about that, right?
Okay.
And this is why right now we need some understanding. How do we know that this situation will not be repeated? And how do we know that Russia will keep their part of the deal? As of right now, it is unclear.
And you mentioned there Donald Trump's special envoy, Keith Kellogg. He says that Europe will be consulted but ultimately excluded from the planned peace talks between Russia, America and Ukraine. How do you feel about that? Because surely it's really important for Europe to be included in these conversations.
Absolutely, we believe that it is important to have Europe in this conversation because, again, the war is happening on European soil. Yeah. And because we have looked and we are looking at our European partners, just same way as we are looking at the United States as our democratic partners who are supporting us with all their capacity that it is possible and who should be, of course, involved in the negotiations. But again, it all comes down to the security guarantees. And this is why for Europe not to be excluded from these talks is to share the responsibility with the United States on making sure that the guarantees for Ukraine's security and sovereignty and territorial integrity include the responsibility of European partners. And this is why NATO, for us, is not off the table.
And what do you make of the calls from President Zelensky for a unified European army? This is something that the Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk also seems to have echoed. Is it time for a European army in your view?
Absolutely, and I agree with that. Look, we don't know what the position of the United States would be just yet. We know that they want to resolve the situation, but we don't know which means are they going to apply, right? And which how much of the pressure can they allow themselves to apply to Russia? But imagine that, as J.D. Vance said in his speech, their concentration will be in the Pacific, and that calls for Europe to take the security for Europe seriously and to understand that the umbrella of American security may not be as reliable as it was before. And of course, Ukraine is a part of this arrangement, and we are ready to be that. And so if there would be a demand to that, I think we would be happily supporting the idea of the European army. And honestly, I think we have learned it over the last 3 years, right? That no matter who your allies are, when you are attacked, it's your people who will be killed. It's your people who will have to fight. And it's your responsibility as a citizen of your country to stand up and fight.
And Kira, just on that front, how are ordinary people in Ukraine feeling? You know, we know there has been a terrible burden on the Ukrainian society. So many people have lost husbands and sons. Women have been raped. You know, children have been taken away. And now you've got these comments from Donald Trump and his new defense secretary. How are ordinary people feeling? Do they feel sidelined? Are they angry? Are they upset? Are they hurt? What's the feeling of the ordinary Ukrainian right now?
Well, Aisha, you are absolutely right. As of right now, I think more than 80% of Ukrainian families have either someone fighting at the front line or have lost someone at this war. And this is why for us, it is very personal. We are all very much involved with what's going on. And we already paid an ultimate price to be where we are right now. So recently I had a meeting with my constituencies and they were asking me the question, what did we do wrong? What's in our actions, generally as Ukrainians, is the way that it's been questioned, should we be supported or not? And unfortunately, I do not have a good answer. I say that it's just all political and it's an attempt to quickly resolve the matter that was going on for ages here in Ukraine and figure out how to actually work with the aggressors in the war, how to push back the aggressors in the war. But it is painful for people, of course. And we just hope that all this hassle and all those various statements, they will at some point face the reality. And the reality is that Russia did not honestly express the willingness to end the war. And it will go down to things that we have been saying since the day one. Arm us and we will do our part. Arm us to the point where we'll be able to throw Russia away from our territory. We are willing and capable of doing that. What we need is just additional weapons, supplies, means to do what we think is right.
Kira, as always, really, really good to speak with you. Look after yourself and we will speak to you soon. That's Kira Rudik, their Ukrainian MP from the Golos party.